This short demo covers the day-to-day data entry tasks in the Accounts program. Once you have done the basic initial setup, which was covered in the previous demo, you can start entering your transactions. Most of your day-to-day work will be done from the Common Actions links on the left side of the window here, or the List of Accounts for Register windows on the right side. Less often used options are on the main menu up here, and you can review them to see what's available. Now I'm going to go into Maintenance Main Options. I'm going to choose the option to hide account numbers except in Chart of Accounts, so you mostly don't have to deal with account numbers in the program, like for data entry and reporting. But if you prefer to see them instead, you can uncheck that option. And there are a bunch of other options on this window, as you can see. For a full explanation of these options, as with most other windows, just click the Help button. That brings up the help topic relevant to this window, and if you scroll through it, you can see that all the details are covered. I'm going to close that now. Especially if you're new to bookkeeping, be sure to read the help topic Accounting Concepts before you start using accounts. From the main menu, you can open up the help using this Help, Contents and Index quick link. Make sure you're in the index, which is best for searching for topics by titles or keywords. And in here, I can click in and type in what I'm looking for. And as soon as I see it, accounting concepts in this case, just press enter and it goes to that topic. For those who are familiar with bookkeeping already, it's still important to read the section lower down on this page on funds and fund accounting, starting here. That will help you understand how the accounts program automates that. Two very important things to understand about the program are that you can only post transactions to accounts that do not have any sub-accounts, and that transactions affecting fund balances are almost always made against income or expense accounts linked to that fund account, not against the fund account itself. Okay, let's close this. There are a number of different ways to enter transactions in accounts. Some of the simplest involve using the special purpose windows for enter deposits, write checks, and credit card charges. Let's try write checks. First, make sure you've selected the bank that you'll be writing the check on. In the Pay the Order of field, the drop-down includes any vendors and payees that you have set up or used. I have set up a few for this demo, but you can type anything else in. If you just start typing anything on this list, like O, the first one that starts with that will pop up. Then I can tab out of that field. In the check number field, you can press plus to get the next available check number in this account if it isn't already there, which in this case it is. Correct the date if necessary. You can use the pop-up calendar, or there are also hotkeys for changing dates directly, like T for today, and plus and minus to increase or decrease by 1 day. Next, I'll enter the total amount of the check. The purchase price was $100 plus 13% sales tax here in Ontario, so I enter $113. For jurisdictions like Canada, where charities pay sales tax, and it is important to track that because the tax you pay is partly recoverable from the government, you can set up sales tax codes with an option on the maintenance menu. I have done that for Ontario with its harmonized sales tax, HST. You will see that as soon as I select a value from this tax code dropdown, which was H for HST, splits lines are set up for the accounts included in that sales tax code, with one further line down here showing the remaining amount after the tax amounts. The final optional field in the top section is the memo for any additional description you want to enter. Now I'll go down to this field for the account, for the main amount. I'm going to choose Other Office Expenses by pressing O one or more times until it pops up. You'll also notice that it resorts the list alphabetically by account name once you press a letter, to make it easier to see and select the account that you want that starts with that letter. Tab out of that field to close the drop-down list. You can save it and close this window, or save and new if you want to enter another check after entering this check. I'll just save and close. Now let's look at Enter Deposits. You will see it's very similar to the Write Checks window, except there's no check number, and some fields have slightly different names. It also has a field for the tax code, but that would only apply if your organization was charging and collecting sales taxes, and you would probably use a different code linked to different accounts from the one you use for your purchases. So let me fill this in quickly for you. So that does it to record the donations against two of the income accounts associated with those two funds, the general and building funds. We'll save and close that. If your organization has a corporate credit card that you are tracking individual expenses on, that's done with the credit card charges window, which is again very similar. We won't do that now. Now let's talk about bills that you have to pay. There are two basic ways to handle them that correspond to what is called cash basis or accrual basis accounting. The cash basis is to just write the checks to pay the bills immediately or when you're ready to do so, and make a direct entry for the bill payment, for instance, with the Write Checks window. The second accrual method is to enter bills to be paid when you receive them and pay them later, hopefully before they are due. Let's try that with the Enter Bills window. The bill that you will pay later is always recorded against your accounts payable account. Most of the fields here will be familiar, but note the distinction between the bill's date and its due date. Say the due date is the end of the same month we are recording in. We can press H, the last letter in the word month, to go to the end of the current month. Many other shortcut keys for dates can be found in the help topic, Keyboard Shortcuts. These remaining fields after that are optional. Now I just need to select the expense account, which is Utilities, and we'll save that with Save and Close. Now suppose it's time to record our payment of the bill. Use Pay Bills. The window comes up showing all outstanding bills from all vendors, but if you want, you can use the For Vendor dropdown to select bills from just one vendor. Select the payment account and the payment date. I'm using H again for the end of the month, and you'll see that the next check number came up automatically. Now, you can enter a partial payment here if you're not paying the full bill, or if you click Pay, it transfers the full amount to be the payment amount, and then you click Pay Now to actually pay this bill, and you could do multiple bills at the same time. There we go. That one is done. Those are all the special purpose ways of entering transactions. Now let's move on to the general purpose method, the register windows. If you have used Quicken or QuickBooks or many other programs, you'll be familiar with such windows. They follow the concept of a paper register book that comes with a personal checkbook. You can open a register window by double-clicking on the account or clicking on it and clicking the Use Register button. The register window shows all transactions affecting that account and a running balance at the end of each line. Some users may prefer to enter most of their transactions on these windows rather than using the special purpose windows that we already showed you. If you're entering bills entered for later payment, however, you would still do that with the Enter Bills and Pay Bills windows. So let's enter another check to Office Depot. I'm going to use T for today. As with the other windows, you can press plus to get the next check number, O to bring up Office Depot, then enter your amount, which in this case was $56.50. And of course, I have to be sure I'm entering that amount in the right field here. There's a column for payment and another column for deposit. Different registers will have different headings for these fields, depending on what type of account it is, asset, liability, or fund. Now, we don't really need a type, which is this next field, for this transaction, although you could enter something that indicated it was a check. And then we need the expense account, which is other office expenses, which I brought up by pressing O, a memo, and again, I've got your tax code field, so I can just press H for HST to automatically split it into the required accounts, even though they're not shown here. Unlike with the special purpose windows that have a scrolling area for the split accounts on the other side of the transaction, you open a special splits window with the splits button or Control S to see a registered transactions window. So here it is with those sales tax accounts split out and the rest going to other office expenses. I could also do edits in this window, but in this case I don't need to, so I'll just close it. To save a registered transaction, just press Enter. You could also just click your mouse into another line, which would pop up a question as to whether you want to save it or not. That gives you a way to undo an incorrect new transaction or edit. You can also edit transactions on the register window that were entered on other windows, except for bills and bill payments entered via the special windows for that. You'll see if I try to click into this line for the bill payment, nothing is editable except for the check number field, which would allow you to correct it in case you're printing the checks and you realize you gave the wrong check for a bill payment. A right-click menu on a normal transaction shows you many other options: viewing the splits, viewing the transaction as a journal entry, which is a cute option that accountants will like, deleting the transaction, and options for copying, cutting, and pasting transactions. Those ones would let you make copies of a transaction or even let you move a transaction from one register to another. For instance, if you realize that you had entered a check against the wrong bank account. You can also memorize transactions, insert previously memorized transactions into the register, reconcile the account from here, print checks from this account, find transactions by various field contents, and search by transaction date. Now, while we're here, let's memorize one transaction, specifically this insurance transaction. So just right-click, memorize transaction, and as long as we're okay with that name, we just click OK, and it's memorized. Okay, that's enough with the register. There are other data entry methods in account that may reduce the amount of time spent in entering transactions in accounts, importing online banking downloads, and recurring transactions. We intend to produce a separate video to deal with importing online banking transactions. But if you don't see it on our list of videos, just consult the comprehensive help topics. Now let's look at the recurring transactions. We previously memorized an insurance transaction that can be either inserted manually as desired, or we could schedule it to be entered on appropriate dates. If we go to Maintenance, Recurring Transactions, all memorized or recurring transactions will be shown. To set up a recurrence, click Edit Recurrence. So we can set the frequency and the date here. I'm going to set it to stop after 12 recurrences because that's our current contract. I'm going to leave these various options here as is, including not to pay on weekend days, and if it does occur on a weekend, to move it forward to a Monday. Then we need to calculate first before we can save it, which shows our first recurrence date and the ending date based on the number of recurrences, and then we can save it. And as you'll see, that recurrence information now shows up here, and we can close that. Now, you may have noticed that there's a little camera icon in the corner of most windows. If you click it, it will pop up a window that has taken a screenshot of the window you were on, and then you can type something here to tell us why you're sending us this screenshot, what you want our help with. Make sure you fill in your name and your email address so that we can reply to you. This is our email address, so you wouldn't use that. Click Send, and after a moment, you'll see it's been emailed to us and a little note about how soon you'll hear from us, and that can help you with any tech support issues. The final data entry method that we haven't mentioned yet is journal entries. Clicking here brings up a list of any prior journal entries, which I don't have any of in this database, and clicking New allows you to enter a new one. Journal entries are for very technical transactions, or ones that cannot be entered in any other way. If you aren't an accountant or skilled bookkeeper, you would probably have your accountant enter any required journal entries, or do so following their detailed instructions. Because they use debits and credits, you really have to understand what you are doing to enter them. And in fact, there are very few reasons in your regular usage of the accounts program that you would need any journal entries. One final thing is a quick look at reports. When you are new to the program, the easiest way to find your way around the reports is with the report browser from here, or on the individual reports submenus that you can go through here. But let's use the report browser for now, which has exactly the same reports as on the submenus. You'll see that as you drill down into the reports, you can see a description for each one and anything that the report prompts for, if anything. Let's start with this income statement. It prompts for a range of dates, defaulting usually to the current fiscal year or calendar year. You can even drill down to see the detailed transactions making up an amount on reports like this with these blue numbers. So let's try that. We had 2 transactions on other office expenses, and we can go back to the main report. The balance sheet is another important report, and it's based on an as of date. In this statement, the total assets always equal the total of liabilities plus funds. That's called the fundamental accounting equation. Funds in the accounts program are the same as equities, for those who understand that. Finally, I want to show you the fund income statement. That breaks your income down by fund. So first there's a page for the general fund, which shows the income and expenses, but also at the bottom here, it shows the starting balance for the reporting period for the general fund, net income for the period, any direct transfers into or out of the fund, and the ending balance based on those changes. So that's on one page. And then if I scroll down to the next page, we have a similar report for the building fund, which also had one transaction on it at some income for the building fund. We do have one other fund in our chart of accounts, but since there were no transactions on it, it's not part of this particular report. That's all you need to know for your basic day-to-day usage of the accounts program.